Of all the executions in anime history, the craziest of them all has to be that of Goldie Roger and his son Porkos Diaz. One happens to be at the beginning of the story provoking the Great Pirate Era, while the other right in the middle forces the world into an age of terror and chaos. So wouldn't it make sense if there was one final execution that would usher in an era of freedom and peace for the whole world near the end of One Piece as well? This leaves us with a super mind-boggling question. What would happen if Sabo was about to be executed by the Marines? Who would come to his rescue, and how would this affect the plans of the Revolutionary Army? Imagine this. It's sometime after Sabo declares war against the world government and discovers the truth behind the empty throne. He barely escapes after witnessing the murder of King Cobra. So you might be wondering, how would the world government ever capture him? Well, there are a few options of how this could happen. The ship he was hiding on could have sinked, or one of his allies could have betrayed him. But for the sake of this video, let's just assume that someone captured him before he was able to escape from the Holy Land. Because of his power, Sabo was handcuffed with the strongest sea prism stones, drenched with water because of his fiery past, tied down with chains, and is guarded by the worst possible combination ever. A Marine Admiral and a Seraphim. Not even Big Mom could get out of that pickle. Now that he's secured, we have to ask, why would the world government want to execute Sabo in the first place? Well, to start, he launched an all-out offensive against the Celestial Dragons. Burning down their flag and declaring war, freeing an important pet of the world noble Nkuma, is the brother of two of the most troublesome pirates ever and is the chief of staff in the Revolutionary Army, worth a whopping 600 million berries. Taking out Sabo would send a strong message to the world that the government still owns the seas, just like they did with Roger and Ace. And if that isn't enough, they would definitely want to eliminate him after his discovery of the Emu and the empty throne. To sum it up, Sabo and the Revolutionary Army are the biggest current threats to the world government and their control over the world. So with Sabo on a ship heading to New Marineford where they plan to carry out the execution, the world government announces to the world that Sabo will be put to death in a few days' time. Now you might be wondering, why in the world would they choose a public execution? Again, after they almost lost the war at Marineford. You might also be asking yourself, shouldn't they just execute him privately and frame it on someone else like they did with Cobra? Well, it is really quite simple. You see, a public execution is about more than just killing someone. It's a symbol of power and control. So by executing Sabo with the whole world watching, the world government is sending a message to all pirates that no matter how strong you are, the world government cannot be defeated. As for why they wouldn't choose a private execution, it's boring. Besides, a lot of fans wouldn't enjoy such a tragic ending. But first, what about the Revolutionary Army? Well, they are strong and tenacious. They aren't powerful enough to take on the entirety of the Marine forces and rescue Sabo by themselves. Instead, they immediately try to contact as many of their allies as possible and tell them that Sabo needs their help. And by friends, we mean all of their friends. That's a lot of manpower. Will the Marines even stand a chance? Well, the Marines have many impressive fighters themselves, plus a new Seraphim, who are advanced clones of the former warlords that we were introduced to right after Wano. And while most of the characters can be clearly divided into either allies or enemies, there are many out there that would have uncertain loyalties as well. Take Garp, for example. What would he do when he learns that Sabo is about to be executed? I mean, he's only the adopted brother to two of his annoying grandsons and an ally to his rebellious son. We saw he could barely contain himself when Ace was killed, so would he really stand by and let a close kin die? Or how about Kobe, Smoker, even Fujitora? How would they behave on the battlefield? Speaking of said battlefield, here's what we know about New Marineford. In the heart of the sea, the new headquarters stands tall. It has this massive multi-level fortress surrounded by rocky land. At the base, there are two colossal arches that meet at the center, kind of like the McDonald's-shaped M. The structure's base is fortified with a circular stone wall lined with turrets and a bridge that possibly leads to the Red Line. The execution platform with Sabo is right here, guarded by Akainu and Sengoku. St. Charlos, alongside a few other world nobles, will make an appearance on the floor as they sit eagerly anticipating the death of the man who's caused so much trouble. And if you thought things couldn't get any worse, they are just about to. Besides, each celestial dragon stands a holy knight. Most of the marine forces are spread out around the island, including the Seraphim and the Vice Admirals, while the Admirals wait right here above the main gate. And at the top of the structure, St. Figurlin Garling makes his first ever real appearance to oversee the execution. And let's get to that execution. Days have passed after Sabo was captured. With the world watching, and for the first time ever in history, Monkey D. Dragon and his son Luffy are seen side by side with the Thousand Sunny and Wind Grandma approaching New Marineford. The Straw Hats and the Revolutionary Army, together with Luffy's allies, are lined up at the front of their ships, determined to save Sabo. Some might even say that Whitebeard and Ace are there in spirit. But all pirates are immediately fired upon by every single cannon on the fortress. Ivankov and Karasu lead up into the air, with Karasu heading straight for Sabo's execution platform, but is met by a menacing Kizaru who stops him. Lindbergh and Usopp stay behind on both ships and provide cover, while Luffy and the rest of the pirates emerge safely from their ships. Dragon stays on board and watches the battle unfold from the Wind Grandma. Remember that they are not alone in this fight. Prior to the battle, the Revolutionary Army and the Straw Hats' Grand Fleet gathered to make a coordinated plan of attack. Now that they docked, the Allied captains join in battle, spreading out to take on the main forces of the Marines. The battle is on, however the Marines seem to have the upper hand. Cannons rain down on the Grand Fleet, the Seraphim blast allies with lasers, and all Sabo can do is shout encouragement and curse the Marines. In the midst of the chaos, the Marines finally make their first move. Ryokugyu sprouts into action. Literally, it forces trees and plants alike to grow violently across the battlefield, separating both allies and the Navy. The vegetation forms a forest in 4 different directions across the island, dividing the battlefield into groups. Now we don't know how each fight would turn out, but let's assume each group is able to hold their own. With everyone disoriented from what just happened, the admirals leap down into the group and begin to lay waste to the allies. Kizaru finally forces Karasu to the ground and faces off against Zoro, Sanji, and Usopp alongside S-Hawk and S-Mingo. And while Zoro and Sanji are occupied with Kizaru, Usopp is left to run for his life from the Seraphim as they descend upon him with laser beams. On the other side of the island, Koala alongside Nami, Chopper, and Brook face a confused Fujitora whose priority is to save as many people as possible. However, they still have to contend with S-Shark and S-Gecko. At this point, things aren't looking good for Team Sabo, but thankfully there's more allies on the way. Suddenly, a massive blast breath shoots out of the clouds, destroying all the cannons on one side of the fortress. Momonosuke and Yamato emerge from the shadows. It seems like Team Wano was a little late to the battle after having to pick up Marco the Phoenix. And while they are strong, it looks like Kinemon and the rest of the Akazaya 9 decide to stay home and protect their country. Nevertheless, Momo continues to rain fire upon the tower until Kizaru comes out to confront him. And while Momo is a large target for the light Logia user, Marco immediately cancels out Kizaru's attack while Yamato jumps down to meet Luffy and the others. But wait, something's not quite right. Didn't Luffy and the allies defeat Kaido and Big Mom in the land of Wano? Then why are they sailing towards the island with a bunch of ships? Immediately spotting Momo in the air, Kaido transforms into a dragon and travels to challenge the Shogun. Occupied with setting the island on fire, Momo doesn't see Kaido come up from behind him and is badly injured after he's bitten. Momo falls to the ground and is left bleeding next to Luffy. Chopper sees the pink dragon fall and rushes to his aid. Upon docking, the Beast Pirates are met with the incoming fire from foot soldiers that are soon protected by Big Mom, who absorbs the lifespan of half the troops, killing them instantly. With their eyes set on getting payback, Big Mom and Kaido move in on Luffy, who's already got his hands filled with Green Bull. The Grand Fleet confront the Beast Pirates, but are worn out on both ends since they have to protect both their captain and evade the laser beams from the Seraphim. With things turning upside down, Sabo screams for Luffy to run and curses at Sengoku to let him go, because he knows that the way things are going, his crew and fleet might not make it out alive. While the revolutionary commanders can fight on par with admirals, some of the Straw Hats simply cannot hold out forever. Nami, Chopper, and Brook have to fight gravity and the superhuman strength of S-Shark and S-Gecko, while Jinbe combines his fishman karate and the nearby water to fight Akainu together with Nico and Lindbergh. It doesn't help much that Vice Admirals Hina, Smoker, Garp, and Kobe join the party after seeing 2 former Yonkos show up. In fact, things are about to get much worse, since Kizaru is distracted with Marco, Zoro, and Sanji trying to hold off S-Mingo and S-Hawk for Karasu's second attempt at freeing Sabo. But he is grabbed at the neck by Akainu, who slams him into the ground and forcefully begins pouring a large amount of lava onto the Logia user. All of the revolutionary commanders immediately stop what they're doing and scream Karasu's name as he smiles, going up in a fiery blaze. Akainu's fire, accompanied with Karasu's soot, gives way to a combustion reaction that takes him out. Seeing his fellow commander die right in front of him, Sabo bangs his head on the floor and curses at not just the world nobles, but the holy knights. He spits on St. Charlos and faces the camera that's broadcasting his live execution. Without any fear, he yells that he knows who killed Nefertari Cobra, as well as what happened in the kingdom of Lulusia. Before he could say anything more, St. Garling drops down and attempts to silence Sabo himself. All of a sudden, a huge gust of wind begins to blow across the island and very heavily across the execution deck. So much so that even the nobles on that level begin to fall out of their seats. Everyone on this side of the island stops and is stunned as they see Monkey D. Dragon and Bartholomew Kuma standing on top of the bridge. And while we don't know exactly what Dragon's powers are, every time we've seen him in the story, there's a strange wind and weather that follows. So for now, let's assume he has some sort of wind powers, either from a devil fruit or an ancient weapon. As Dragon looks down at the field, he sends another blast of wind that almost topples Garling. This gives Kuma a chance to self-teleport to the execution platform and wipe out St. Charlos and the rest of his family. Before the Holy Knights can react, they find themselves scattered across different parts parts of the Grand Line. But it is at this point where St. Garling has had enough. He orders Sabo's immediate execution. As the announcement spreads across the field, members of both the Revolutionary and Straw Hats become desperate. As Luffy drops what he's doing and heads for the platform, a golden fist almost the size of the island descends upon Marineford, killing both Kuma and Sabo in the process. Meanwhile, Dragon uses the distraction as an opportunity to exact revenge on the Celestial Dragons. He makes his way across the bridge towards the Red Line in Merijois. However, he will not get there so easily, because this whole time the Gurosei have been watching the battle ready to intervene if necessary. And now they see a chance to end one of the most dangerous threats to the world government, and they intend to take it. And since we do know some of Gurosei's abilities, it will be insane to see what happens when they clash. So along with CP0, they begin their battle with the Revolutionaries. Now up in the air, Kizaru is finally getting the better of Marco. The Grand Fleet is being overwhelmed by the sheer number of enemies, from the Marines to the Beast Mob pirates. And while Sanji has defeated Esmingo with his super speed and fiery kicks, Zoro is still locked in battle with S-Hawk, and poor Usopp is just barely staying alive while running and sniping at the Seraphim. On the other side of the battlefield, Frankie and Nico rush to help the Grand Fleet against the Seraphim Beast Pirates disaster, while Jinbei and Lindbergh help Nami and Koala in confronting Fujitora. But the Blind Admiral has become even more disinterested in fighting and is looking up into the sky instead. Did a shooting star just pass by? But more importantly, seeing another brother die sends Luffy down a spiral of despair. Just like in old Marineford, he falls to his knees and begins to cry. A very injured Akainu sees this as its opportunity to put an end to the worst band of brothers in pirate history. He activates his signature technique with his fist, Great Eruption, and moves in for the kill. But out of nowhere, a fiery wall descends from heaven and blocks the move. It's Sabo. Seeing that Akainu failed again, Garling tries to kill both Luffy and Sabo from behind, but is stopped by Shanks, who counters the move so fast that the sky splits in half. It looks like reinforcements arrive just in time. Law, Kid, and Buggy the Clown make their way across the island, providing support to the allies in their fight against Big Mom and Kaido. But when things are finally going their way, an unwanted pirate enters the scene with a sinister laugh. The last emperor to join the party mocks Akainu and Garling and pulls out a gun to end both the brothers himself, firing multiple rounds, but is dumbfounded as they bounce off Luffy and miss his brother. It is at this point where Sabo climbs up the rubble of the execution platform and announces loudly that there is someone who sits on the empty throne. Suddenly, the sky turns black. It gives way to eerie green clouds that hover over the island. If you know what time it is, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe.